This is the example video for elimination. So, taking a look at this first problem, I have negative 6x minus 6y equals 18, and 7x plus 6y equals negative 12. So my first step, I need to choose a variable to eliminate. So my two options are going to be x or y. Okay, so just taking a look at this right now, looking at my y's, I've got a negative 6 as my coefficient in the top equation, and I've got a positive 6 as my coefficient in the second equation. Because I know when I combine those, negative 6 plus 6 is going to be 0, I'll choose my y's to eliminate. So when I do that, I've got negative 6x plus 7x, which I know is just x. Negative 6y plus 6y cancels out. And 18 minus 12 is going to be 6. So right down here, I'll write x equals 6. So now that I know what x equals, I can take this 6 and plug it in for x in either the first equation or the second equation. Doesn't matter, you should get the same answer. It's all personal preference. So I'll just choose the top equation. So I'll write negative 6. Instead of x, we're plugging in 6. Minus 6y equals 18. So negative 6 times 6 is going to be negative 36. So to get the y by itself, my first step will be to add 36 to get rid of the negative 36. So when we do that, negative 36 plus 36 cancels out. So we're left with negative 6y equals 18 plus 36, which I know is 54. So last step, I'll divide both sides by negative 6. When I do that, negative 6 divided by negative 6 will leave me with a coefficient of 1. So I don't need to include it. I've got the y by itself. And I know that 54 divided by negative 6 is going to be negative 9. So the point where these two lines cross, or the solution that satisfies both of them, is going to be 6, negative 9. And that is the format I would like your answers in as an ordered pair. Pause the video if you need more time. I'm moving on to number 2. Alright, taking a look at this one. So first off, we have 2x plus 2y equals negative 2, and negative 2x minus 2y equals 0. So taking a look at x and y, it looks like they're both going to eliminate. So let's just combine them. So we've got 2x minus 2x, which cancels. We have 2y minus 2y, which cancels. So all of a sudden I'm left with nothing, or 0, on the left side. And then on the right side, I have negative 2 plus 0, which is negative 2. So it looks like I can't solve for any variable. I have 0 equals negative 2. Okay? So first off, let's examine this. Does 0 equal negative 2? No. So this would be false. And because it's false, we know our solution will actually be no solutions. So that just means these two lines are parallel. They'll never cross. So they have the same slope. Okay? All right, moving on. Number 3. So taking a look at number 3, I have 3x minus 6y equals 15, and I have 3x minus y equals 0. Okay, nothing eliminates right away, so I'm going to pick whatever is easiest for me. And taking a look here, I've got 3x and 3x as my two first terms. So taking a look at this, if this bottom 3x were a negative 3x and I combine them, my x's would eliminate. So my goal will be to turn this 3x into a negative 3x. And I can do that by multiplying this entire equation by negative 1. So I've got my top equation that I'll rewrite over here. And now I've got my scaled equation. Okay, I call it scaled because I had to scale it by some factor. I multiplied the entire equation by negative 1. So when we do that, we get negative 3x plus y equals 0. So now we can combine. So 3x minus 3x cancels, eliminates. Negative 6y plus y is going to be negative 5y. And 15 plus 0 will be 15. Last step to solve for y, I'll divide both sides by negative 5. Negative 5's cancel on the left, so we're left with y equals 15 divided by negative 5, which is just negative 3. So now that we know that y equals negative 3, we can take this negative 3 and plug it in for y in either the top equation or the bottom equation. As I said during problem number 1, and I'll continue to say, it does not matter which equation you pick, you should get the same answer. So I'm going to pick the bottom one. So we have 3x minus negative 3 equals 0. So to get rid of the parentheses, I'll multiply negative 3 by this negative sign, or negative 1. So we get 3x plus 3 equals 0. Subtract 3 from both sides. Those 3's cancel, so we're left with 3x equals negative 3. So to get the x by itself, I'll divide both sides by 3. So I'm left with x equals negative 3 divided by 3, which is negative 1. So I know when graph these two lines cross at the point negative 1, negative 3. Pause the video if you need more time. Number 4. Okay, same sort of problem here, actually almost identical on the left side. But to switch it up a little bit, how about we try to eliminate the y this time? So if I'm going to eliminate the y, I've got a negative 6y up here, and I've got a negative y down here. So I know if I had a positive 6y down here, I would be able to eliminate my y. So I'll multiply my bottom equation by negative 6. So when I do that, I'll rewrite my top equation. For my bottom equation, I'll have negative 18x plus 6y equals 138. Negative 23 times negative 6 is 138. So I'll combine. Negative 6y plus 6y cancels. 3x minus 18x is going to be negative 15x. And negative 18 plus 138 is going to be 120. Okay, so if I divide both sides by negative 15, negative 15's cancel on the left side, so I'm left with just x. And 120 divided by negative 15 is going to be negative 8. So now that I know what x is, I can pick either my top equation or my bottom equation and plug in negative 8 for x. So let's do the bottom equation. Instead of x, I'm writing negative 8. Three times negative 8 is going to be negative 24. I'll add 24 to both sides. When I do that, negative 24 plus 24 cancels. So we're left with negative y equals negative 23 plus 24, which is 1. So last step, since I've got negative y here and I want positive y, I'll divide both sides by negative 1. So my y becomes positive, and 1 divided by negative 1 will be negative 1. So I know these two lines cross at the point negative 8, negative 1. All right, moving on. Okay, taking a look at this problem, 4x minus 6y equals 12, and 8x minus 12y equals 24. So first off, we have to pick a variable to eliminate. So taking a look, how about this time we eliminate x? So I've got a 4x here and I've got an 8x here. If I had a negative 8x up here, I know when I combine, my x's would eliminate. So I'm going to multiply this top equation by negative 2. When I do that, I will get negative 8x plus 12y equals negative 24. And for my bottom equation, haven't touched it, just rewriting it, I have 8x minus 12y equals 24. So I'll combine. When I do that, negative 8x plus 8x cancels. 12y minus 12y cancels, so I'm left with a 0 on the left side. And negative 24 plus 24 is going to be 0. So now I need to examine this. First off, does 0 equal 0? Yes. This is true. And whenever we are left without variables, and we have an equation that is true, or an expression that is true, we know our solution will be all real numbers, because these two lines are actually the exact same. They overlap one another. So it doesn't matter what ordered pair we pick, we plug it into the top equation and the bottom equation, they will both be satisfied. Next one, we have 2x minus 6y equals 12, and negative 3x plus 12y equals negative 30. So we have to pick a variable to eliminate. So if I take a look at my x's, I know I'm going to have to multiply both equations. Okay, nothing I can multiply this 2 by to get a negative 3, or nothing that's pretty. So how about we try to eliminate y? So I've got 12y down bottom, I've got negative 6y up top. If this y had a coefficient of negative 12, I would be able to eliminate. So to get that coefficient to be a negative 12, I'll multiply my top equation by 2. When I do that, I get 4x minus 12y equals 24. And then I haven't touched my bottom equation, but I'll rewrite it. So now when I combine these, negative 12y plus 12y cancels out. 4x minus 3x is going to be 1x, which I can just write as x. And 24 minus 30 is negative 6. So now I can take this negative 6, pick an equation, and plug it in to solve for y. So I'll pick the top equation this time. So I have 2 times negative 6 minus 6y equals 12. So 2 times negative 6 will be negative 12. To get rid of negative 12, I'll add 12 to both sides. When I do that, negative 12 plus 12 cancels out, so we're left with negative 6y equals 12 plus 12, which is 24. So last step, to get the y by itself, because this negative 6 and this y are being multiplied, I'll divide both sides by negative 6. Negative 6's cancel, so we are left with y equals 24 divided by negative 6, which is negative 4. So these two lines will cross at the point negative 6, negative 4. All right, on to the next one. So for this problem, we have negative 9x minus 9y equals 0, and negative 5x minus 6y equals 7. So taking a look, it looks like we're probably going to have to scale both of our equations, no matter which variable we pick. So how about we try to eliminate x? So I'm going to think of the smallest number that 9 and 5 both go into, and make one of them positive and the other negative. So 9 and 5 both go into 45. So how about I multiply this top equation by negative 5, and I multiply this bottom equation by 9. So when I do that, for my top equation, I get 45x plus 45y equals 0, because negative 5 times 0 is 0. And for my bottom equation, I have negative 45x minus 54y equals 63. Okay, so I will combine now. X's are going to cancel. 45 minus 45. 45 minus 54 is going to be negative 9y. and 0 plus 63 will be 63. So I'll divide both sides by -9. -9's cancel. So I'm left with y equals 63 divided by -9, which will be -7. So now I can take that -7 and plug it into, or in for y, in my top or bottom equation. So I will do it for the top equation. So we have -9x minus 9 times -7 equals 0. So to take care of the parentheses, I have -9x plus 63 equals 0. I'll subtract 63 from both sides. (63 minus 63) sorry about that. 63 minus 63 will cancel. So on the left side, I have -9x equals 0 minus 63, which is -63. So when I divide both sides by -9, -9's will cancel on the left, leaving me with just x. And -63 divided by -9 will be a +7. So these two lines cross at the point 7, -7. Awesome. Alright, last problem. Almost there. So we have 3x plus 3y equals 0, and 10x plus 8y equals -16. So looking at both my variables, it looks like I'll have to scale both equations. So how about we try to get rid of our, let's do our y. So to do that, I'll have to multiply my top equation by 8, because that'll get me to 24y. And to get this bottom equation to -24y, I'll have to multiply the entire equation by -3. So when I do that, taking a look at my top, I have 24x plus 24y equals 0. In my bottom equation, I have -30x minus 24y equals 48. So now I can combine. So 24y minus 24y is gone, eliminated. 24x minus 30x will be -6x. And 0 plus 48 will be a +48. So to get rid of this -6, I'll divide both sides by -6. And when I do that, -6 divided by -6 will cancel, become a 1. So I have x equals 48 divided by -6, which is -8. So I'll take this -8 and I'll plug it in for x in either the top equation or the bottom equation. So how about this time we plug it into the bottom equation? So we have 10 times -8 plus 8y equals -16. So now I'll evaluate a little more. So 10 times -8 will be -80. Haven't touched the 8y or the -16 yet. So I'll add 80 to both sides. When I do that, -80 plus 80 cancels. So I have 8y equals -16 plus 80, which will be 64. So I'll divide both sides by 8. 8s will cancel. So I get y equals 64 divided by 8, which will be 8. So these two lines cross at the point -8, 8. So this concludes the example video for elimination. At this time, you may move on to the practice worksheet for elimination.